Welcome to Fix Your BS, the podcast where we dive deep into belief systems that shape our lives and hold us back from achieving our dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Pursley, also known as Dr. G, and in each episode, we'll explore powerful conversations with successful individuals in business, money, relationships, health, and personal growth. Join us as we unpack their journeys, challenge limiting beliefs, and discover practical insights to help you build your dream life on your terms. It's time to fix your BS and unlock your full potential. Once again, we have an amazing guest that's done some amazing things in the online world. Patrick Shannon grew up in a small town outside of Dayton, Ohio. His journey to the professional world has been anything but ordinary. From tax accounting and professional poker playing to software engineering, each step has contributed to his multifaceted career path, leading him to become a successful entrepreneur in the digital marketing sphere. Patrick and I ran into each other online because of my content and his content, and we kept hitting each other. And before you knew it, I was like, man, I got to have you on the podcast. So Patrick, thanks for being here.
Hey, Dr. Gray, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Let's go back for a second. In that intro, we named all sorts of different things. So let's talk about where you are now, the successes you've had, but I want to know where you came from, because I grew up in a small town, you grew up in a small town, and you had a lot of, different roads that led you to where you are now. So tell me about, really quick glimpse, the successes you're having right now with your digital online businesses that you have.
Yeah, so I am the founder of a marketing company. We started in 2013 as a software company, and then in 2016 we really focused on helping concrete contractors. So I think it took us maybe 3 years before we hit seven figures. As the company grew, I used that to fund a SaaS platform, LeadSnap. So LeadSnap is now in 35 countries, and it's helped our agency grow. And then we started coaching, right? I have a passion for helping people, so we really focused on coaching for the last 2 years. I think we've coached more than 1,000 students in the digital space, but it also allowed me to spend 2 years traveling around the world. And my wife was a software engineer, so we retired her, and we've invested in real estate. So it's kind of seems easy mentioning it, but it was anything but that on the way here, which I know a lot of people struggling.
I can tell you, I've had over 100 episodes of this, and people that are successful generally are viewed as, well, they just people see the successes. They don't see the struggle that it took to get there. They also assume the success in the person. I can carry myself really, really well, but they don't know how wealthy, successful, how many investments I have, whether they're doing good or bad, whether the market's up or down. They really don't know. So I know in that statement, you're like, wow, that sounded really great, but there was a lot of hardships in the meantime, and people will relate to that. And obviously there were things that you did that got you to where you are now. And so that's what we're really going to unpack. Now let's talk about where you start. Small town in Dayton, Ohio. And you were a tax accountant, professional poker player, and software engineer in different parts of your career. So let's talk about that. Where did you start, and what were the first things that happened?
Yeah. So, when I was graduating college, just to be clear, I think I graduated high school with maybe like a 2.7 and maybe a 3.0 in college. So I was not a great student by any means. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't find it interesting. When I graduated in 2001, it was hard to find a job. So I actually went back to school. I was getting ready to graduate, and I stayed an extra few quarters to get a degree in accounting, because I thought, hey, maybe if I have 2 degrees, it'll be easier to find a job. Seems like a great time to be in school when when people can't find jobs. So my mom was a CPA, and part of the reasons why I got that job was because my mom was a CPA, and if your son has a degree in accounting, you got to hire him, right? So I think I have maybe 25 letters of companies that I applied to that said basically, hey, Patrick, you're not good enough. We don't want you. So worked as an accountant for 2 years and was playing poker with my buddies on the weekends. And, I started making more money as a poker player than I did as an accountant. And it honestly goes back. I think we talked about this a little bit, Dr. Greg. When I was growing up, I was small, I was skinny, I broke my nose at a young age. My ears stuck out a lot, so I was picked on a lot. And because of that, I think as a survival skill, I started to pay attention to just mannerisms, and I was just trying to understand like what am I doing wrong here? I didn't know that would lead to help me at poker, but I've been doing that for a long time. So when I sat down at the poker table, I was like, this person's comfortable right now. This person's uncomfortable, because I was trying to just to blend in. I was trying to figure that stuff out my whole life. And that turned into a skill set that I didn't know that I was going to have. And it came from getting picked on, honestly, like saying the wrong things, trying to understand, right? Maybe being an awkward teenager and an awkward kid for a long time. So, one thing led to another. I was working as a tax accountant. Online poker started taking off in like 2004. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to put $50 into this online. I was terrified. I was like, $50, man, I'm never going to see this money again. $50 when you're like, I was an accountant. So, $50, especially back then, it's probably worth $200 now or something. But the next month I had $10,000 in there. I was like, holy cow. Like I was surprised. And, I played for.
It's interesting. Let's talk about online poker for a second, because you're right. I was in the beginning of that boom when it really got big online. But poker, which I do enjoy playing occasionally, but it's about reading people. And when you're playing online, you're basically just looking at their strategies or their habits in playing poker, because you can't read their faces. So how did you find playing in-person poker versus online poker like that? Which one was easier for you?
Yeah. I would say like live poker is easier. The players are generally not as tough as they are online, and you have more information, but the hands come out faster online, and you can play more than one table. So if you have an edge, then you can kind of recognize that edge more often. So they're both a game of psychology, and there's a lot of that information, even though you can't see faces, that's available online. So for instance, if somebody loses a big hand and now they're playing in every hand, maybe they're upset. Maybe they usually take some time to act, and now they're like acting really, really quickly. So there is information in there. Sometimes people will talk in the chat. They lose a big hand and they're like exploding in the chat message. And it's like, okay, this person's probably upset. So I'm not going to give them as much credit in questionable situations. So there's a lot. It's just there's energy that's there. Even though I don't know if, like, for me, like I can feel it sometimes. I'm like, this person's upset. I just like something's different here.
It's just interesting because we're in person. You can, visually see and have that contact as well as the information. And then online, it kind of removes some of that, but you have obviously what their habits are within the game. And if they start to change or whatever, you can recognize that. I just think it's interesting. Anyway, so you did poker playing for a while. You ended up having 10 grand in your bank account, and you're like, what the heck? So then you went to become a professional poker player?
I was too scared, man. Honestly, I was too scared. Coming from a small town in Ohio, this isn't what people do. You don't go to college, get a job in accounting, and then just like quit and move to Vegas. And a lot of people telling me I couldn't do this, and I believed them for a long time. It was a big learning experience. There's our dreams, and we want them, and they always seem out of reach. And what the catalyst was is I won a tournament, and the prize for that tournament was a cruise. So I went on this cruise, and on the cruise they had a poker tournament, and the prize for that was another cruise. So I won that, and then I won a tournament which sent me out to play in the World Series of Poker. And so I didn't do very good in the actual tournament, but I played in some other games while I was out there, and I won a bunch of money. And I started to believe, and I was at this. I'm in my early 20s, and like you believe in what your parents tell you, right? I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't had a lot of like experience where I bucked the system. So I probably played for like an entire year, and then I went back out to Vegas after tax season for a month, and I was just like, you know what, it's time to take a shot. And Dr. Greg, that was a big learning experience to believe in myself, and it took a long time to get there. And I know there's probably people out there who have an idea and have a vision, and they're just not sure if it's going to work out. And I'll tell you, it seems that way for everyone up until a point, and then you just decide what the outcome's going to be, and you work backwards.
Yeah, I agree with that, because there's so many people that's the hard part in any dream and any vision that you're going for is, I think, Alex Hormozy, he talks about this a lot, but he's like, the sucky part about it is you're doing action toward this dream and people are like, it's not working. And they're right. Unfortunately, in that moment, they're right. And then a year later, they might still be right. And 2 years later, they might still be right. And even 5 years later, they might still be right. But then eventually they're not right anymore. You have the success, you hit the goal. And it's the people that are willing to put themselves out there and continue to fight for their dream, if you will, to get whatever that vision is, and aren't willing to settle. Those are the people that end up winning the most. But you got to eliminate those naysayers, and you have to believe in yourself in the process. And I think that belief in yourself is very extremely important. And so few people really have that.
Yeah, we're beaten up in one way or another through our childhoods, where we've tried something that didn't work, or somebody's told us something and we believed it. And they say the people that are crazy enough to change the world are the ones that believe they can, or some version of that, right? Like the people that change the world are the ones that are crazy enough to believe they can. So
And the ones that believe they can, but then take action. The ones that believe they can,
yeah,
and then do something about it. Yeah, exactly.
I think those are tied together too. Like if we believe we can, like taking action doesn't seem as scary, because if we don't, it can be like, I don't really want to waste my time and fail, right? Or
Right.
I don't want to embarrass myself, where I'm like putting myself out there and then it doesn't work out. And I think at some point you start to realize, like, you know what? People are going to think whatever they're going to think about you. You can't control it, and you're going to end up not making yourself happy. If I think we talked about this before, but the 5 regrets of the dying, that book talks about worrying about what other people think. This is what they essentially went out there. They surveyed all these people that are passing away in nursing homes and stuff like this, and asked them what their biggest regrets are. One of the top ones was worrying about what other people think. So if you can just kind of like drop that, and not like, who cares what other people are going to think, go for your dream. And, I don't know a lot of people who went all out for something and content, like persistently for an extended period of time, and just didn't have any success at all with it. Like if they're all out, and I get it. If you're 5'2" and you're trying to be in the NBA, like maybe that's not going to work out. But like in business, like anything can be learned and trained.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of information out there nowadays too. I just had a podcast not too long ago with a buddy of mine. And he was talking about the same thing. He's like, look, man, information's out there everywhere. Everybody's got iPhones, like or phones in general, cell phones. They can access your information. You probably have something you can teach somebody. So if you wanted to start a business, you could. But what most people do is, I'm afraid to put myself out there, or what if they don't like it, or what if it doesn't work, or what if people say bad things, blah, 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 blah. And that's exactly what we're saying. Don't worry about what they think. If your intentions are pure, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to improve people's lives, I want to have a lot of fun, I want to help a lot of people, I want to make a lot of money, then, let's roll. If it's not trying to take advantage of people, then it doesn't matter what they actually say or think about what you're doing. So, figure out what your purpose is and act on it. Right. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. So you did this stint as a professional poker player for a little bit. Why did it stop? What ended? What happened where you were like, maybe let's move on?
Yeah. Well, online poker got shut down. So then we had to be in the casino, which was great. I thought, hey, I like being around people. So we moved out to Vegas, and probably 7 years of playing out in Vegas. And when I was playing online, I was going back and forth between Vegas. So but I started to feel like I'm a net negative on the world. I had moral conflict around some of this. People, and I get it. Like, hey, they're making the choice to come in here and doing this, but there's two different parts of your brain. There's a logic side where I can justify this, and there's the emotional side where it hurts. I love
Mm.
people, and I felt like my heart wasn't in it after a little while. I was just like, I don't enjoy what I'm doing here. There's people screaming at you. There's people, electrics getting shut off, degenerate gamblers, smoke. Like you're out in Vegas, so there's all the seediness of Vegas that you're around. And I kind of felt like, hey, maybe there's something else for me here. And they legalized online poker in Nevada only. And I didn't realize what implication that was going to have. But when they did that, I was like, great. I'm like, I want to get out of the casino. And so I started playing online. When they first launched these sites online in Vegas, there was no way to take notes on other players. So I used a spreadsheet, and you're trying to like play a hand and look through this spreadsheet with hundreds of rows and find the notes that you have on someone, and it wasn't working. So I said, look, maybe I can build a tool. And I didn't have experience as a programmer, but at the time it was lynda.com. It got bought out by LinkedIn. So it was lynda.com. I basically signed up for how to build a website and then how to do programming, because I had to have actual logic where a website is just going to, you click on this button, it goes to this page. I needed it to be like, if this is true, then do this type of logic. And I needed to be saving in a database where I could pull back the information on a player. So eventually, after like going through courses, reading books, I built this tool where I had little notes of the different players that I was playing against. So Jim's at the table, like Jim's notes right here, and there's are the hand histories. And I built in a function where I could sort and say, okay, when he's bluffing, he does this. So here's the betting pattern, and I'm looking at this and I'm comparing it. So I'm like, I have a note system here. And that I got to a point where I was stuck, and I had become friends with someone who was a programmer. They saw what I had built and they offered me a job. So I spent the next few years, left poker, worked as a software engineer for the next 4 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you did that for a little bit, and that obviously put together some skills from reading people and knowing strategies and tactics and habits that people have. And then you put it into the software side. And is that how you ended up, creating LeadSnap? Is that kind of how you got there?
Really wasn't happy with the way I was being treated in this software company after a little while. The tune changed over time. And here's another ego shot is like, I didn't really want to work there, but I was really underpaid. The original agreement was that I was going to work from home. And they're like, hey, all the remote employees have to be in the office. After a couple months, I was like, well, look, I need to be paid more and I need to work from home, or I don't think there's a future. And I was like thinking like, oh, well, they're going to bend to I'm doing amazing work for this company. And then the next day they fired me. So I was like, oh, yeah, they're like, see you later, which that really hurts. It's kind of like maybe like you're a guy and you're at the bar at the end of the night, and there's like you want to go ask. There's only a few girls left, so you go and ask one that you don't really want to dance with, and then they say no. It's like that's kind of what it felt like. It was like I didn't really want to work at this company, but I was also they rejected me too, and that hurt my ego a lot. And it took me some time to get through that. My wife was like, "You can do so much better stuff," and I had like interviews with Amazon, Facebook, all these different places going on now. And that was a real discussion that my wife and I had. Like we had built some amazing things with the software, and they were a lot bigger companies that were trying to get us to come work, but I knew that it was going to be 80 hours away from my wife per week. And we had started our marketing company a little bit, and we just decided to go all in on marketing. And, over time, as we were building the marketing company, we started to realize that, hey, we don't have what we need. We don't have what we need to manage Google business profiles, which is the most important part for local search. So we started building LeadSnap to deal with that. We didn't have a way to track leads and to automate follow-up. So to get more reviews. So all these different things, we weren't building it to sell. We were building it to try to make our agency better. And that was kind of like the birth of the LeadSnap software.
That's awesome. So tell me some of the aha moments that you had in your career, moments where it was like, this is a defining moment where I'm moving in a new direction, or, something that just pops out at you that you're like, got it, moving on to a new direction.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely the idea that if I just put my mind to something, I mean, it's cliche, but the cliches exist because people say them all the time, and they say them all the time because that realization is common. And that was the case for me. Is look, I wasn't somebody that was viewed as intelligent and or like really successful coming up. And when I started playing poker, this is a battle of the wits, right? So I had people tell me that I couldn't do it, and I found that like I put in the effort, I put in the work, and the people are like, "Wow, this guy's smart." And I started to realize that I was capable of way more than I thought I was. And if I follow my heart and I really go after something, that I'm capable of doing it. When I started to learn to be a software engineer, it was a completely different mindset. This is something that's supposed to be really hard. People go to college for this for years, and it's like it's a really, um, you know, people love this profession. It's looked on with respect by society. And I was like, I believed at that point that I could teach myself to do it after what I'd been through. But I could look back and say, that's not how you used to think. When I was like 35 years old, my mom told my wife that she's like, I never realized Patrick was smart. And I was like, that was my mom.
Hmm.
So this belief in yourself is worth so much more than what everyone else says. And I think if you can get clear on where you're going and just be directionally accurate with the efforts that you take, it's going to take you somewhere. You may not get there tomorrow, but if you're just kind of moving in the right direction and you can celebrate some of the success along the way, you can pick up momentum, and you're going to be way more capable than you think, than you are what you think you are.
That's actually one of my favorite quotes is the movement towards success, or what the definition of success is: the movement towards a worthy ideal. And you get to define what that worthy ideal is. And it also means that you can change what success means to you as you move toward it. So if you're standing in a valley and you see a mountain peak and you're like, ooh, that's the goal, that's the success, and you move toward it, then as you're going, you see something that you're like, you know what, actually, I feel like that's more successful to me. Then you can change that direction as long as you're consistently moving toward that ideal, that worthy ideal for yourself, which is pretty awesome. So I love that
Yeah.
you defined it like that. Were there any lessons along the way that you put into steps, like these are the 3 things or the 5 things or anything like that you said, these are the things that I put in place for myself to continuously grow, improve, or improve my business overall in order to move towards that success?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say number one is I learned this when I was playing poker. There was a lot of people that I surround myself. Here's number one is like surround yourself with other people that are going in the same direction or are where you want to go. Like find a network of people that are passionate about this direction because they're putting in their hours. And if they're passionate, they're going to put in a lot of hours. And if you get a group of those people, like the group think towards something can go so much faster. That's what I did in poker. I surrounded myself with some people. And some of these people, it seemed like they were so confident, and it kind of made me feel uneasy at times where I was like, man, like I feel like the more I learn, the less I know, because I just like started to realize how much there is out there. But some people didn't view the world that way. And it kind of shook my confidence at times because like they're so much more confident. They must be better than me. And I just realized that they didn't have the beginner's mind. And I've kept that with everything. Is like even in our companies, we run EOS. EOS is Entrepreneur Operating System. As a part of that, you set up your core values. So one of the core values in our agency is like beginner's mind, remain humbly confident, right? So it's like be confident, but realize there's a lot more to learn. And if you take that approach, you will continually to seek information. I always hire mentors and coaches. I did this in poker. That was great. I've continued to do this. and I read constantly. I take courses, training. I'm just like trying to consume information on this. One mistake I think people make around this is they consume information, they're too analytical, and then they don't take action. You learn 1,000 times more by taking action and doing something wrong than you do by sitting on the sideline and trying to guess about how it's going to be.
You know, that is a common theme with the most successful people that I've interviewed and been around and talked to is taking action. It's better to take action to find out whether it's number one, going to work or not, or if you're doing it the right way, or number two, if it's what you truly want or not. By not taking action, you really don't know whether it's what you want or not. You're assuming, but you don't really know. And so it's better to take action and really find out and then go, oh, okay, this is right for me or it's not right for me or whatever. And so that's a defining theme that I've heard over and over and over. So is there anything that as you move forward in your journey of your life and in business and everything that gets you excited right now? I mean, anything that you're like, man, I'm just so excited about blank.
Yeah, I mean, learning, evolving. I'm such a curious person, and I'm just constantly seeking more information. I'm excited with the software that we have, our marketing agency, what we're doing, the coaching program. I mean, I love it. I love getting into the nuance of it with AI and the way it's coming on. And our platform has a lot of AI built into it. So running like a platform that has a ton of AI on the cusp of an AI revolution is really exciting. The potential, so many ideas around this. I just like, it's kind of like you as a little kid when you open up your presents and you've got like new toys to play with. That's kind of how I feel like with learning, where it's like, oh, when we started building LeadSnap, we weren't focused on usability because it wasn't a tool for other people. It was a tool internally. And now that we have it as a commercial product, like how do we make this thing like really, really easy to use? We're studying usability and all these different pieces. And I'm super excited to like get that in there and have, have this tool be used by maybe less technical people and being able to leverage it and take advantage of it because it can be so powerful. And to be able to take something that's complex and make it simple for somebody else, the impact from that is massive. And I mean, I'm excited for so many different things with this. Business acquisition is something I'm into too, getting into. So that answer, I could stay on here for another hour with you.
Well, yeah, AI is very exciting, and the fact that you have a software that is utilizing AI is huge because AI is developing so quickly that your software is obviously able to over time able to adapt and improve because of it, and that's exciting too. So we're implementing LeadSnap into some of our companies, and I'm excited to see the results of that. But you're right, you have to be prevalent on social media. You have to be prevalent on the Google business side of things. And if you're not, your business really is missing out, let's say. Now, the quicker you can respond, the more you can get data back from that software, the better off you're going to be. And that's what LeadSnap's all about. So I'm really excited to see how that performs. And obviously I agreed to do that after I was on your podcast when I learned a lot about it. And I was like, man, that sounds awesome. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. As far as any final remarks, like things that that you kind of use as standards for your life that you found that are, I don't know, very impactful that people could follow, what are some things that you would tell people like that?
Yeah. So for me, there's some quotes. I use quotes as kind of like a North Star and guiding lights. There's these moments in life where we get into gray areas. And I think if you don't have clarity on where you want to go, you're not going to have guidance in these gray areas of life where it's like, should I do this or should I do this? I think we can spend a lot of time climbing the ladder, and then we can realize that maybe this ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. So I think getting clarity on where you want to go, start with the end in mind. One of the things we do in our companies and in our coaching program is we run a book club. One of my favorite books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read that, it's like a guide for life, I think. It sounds like it's about productivity, but it's really about kind of like setting yourself up so that when you finish, when it's time to check out, that you are in alignment with what you wanted. Some of the quotes that I love is, you're going to get what you tolerate. So if you're okay with like mediocre results, if you're okay with, going through the motions in your life, then that's fine. But for me, one of my biggest fears is when it's time for me to say goodbye to everybody, to not have lived an exceptional life, to have not had an impact. So I built my life around that. And if that's what my guiding light is, what am I willing to tolerate along the way? Right? If I want to have great companies, it has to be great employees. And that means that if there's people within my company that, hey, maybe I really care for these people, but they're not moving us in the direction at the speed or with the right attitude, then I have to be a big enough man or a big enough person to step in and do something about it. So you get what you tolerate. I'm a big believer as you heal is, as you maybe felt through this interview, is like the man or woman who says I can and I can't, they're both right. I learned that lesson and I've leaned into it. And I've kind of leaned into the fear and uncomfortability of pushing forward past things, because it's not easy. It's scary. And you kind of realize that we're scared of things that aren't going to hurt us a lot of the times. And that's what's holding us back.
Yeah, man, those are great quotes, great comments. I love that book too, Habits of Highly Effective People. I've got it in my bookcase right back here, as well as many other, man, there's so many great books out there. And that's one thing that I think you have a theme of is continuous learning, be curious, constantly reading, learning about new things, because in our world today, there's constantly new things coming out that you can learn about as well. So thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, or Fix Your BS. I hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to challenge your own belief systems. If you are ready to take the next step and join the Fix Your BS community, which is dedicated to your personal transformation, check out my coaching group by clicking the link in the description. Patrick's information is all going to be in the description as well. You can click on any of his links and find out about what he's doing in LeadSnap and as well as what he's doing in his social media. Remember, the only thing standing between you and your goals are the beliefs and your actions, your beliefs and your actions. So let's fix them. Until the next time, keep believing in yourself. And as always, I'm here to help you fix your BS. All right. Patrick, thank you, sir, for being here.